sinking in sand? Are you walking on water, or are you sinking in sand? Are you walking on water? Are you sinking in sand? You see the heavenly Father said, let the sun redeem man.
Hello again, Shalom. This is Alan, and this is The Building. So this is going to be another Bible study going into Genesis chapter 11. We already covered the first 9 verses, getting us through the Tower of Babel with Nimrod and in Nineveh. And now we're going to go into Shem's line and look at some of the generations again, another genealogy here in chapter 11, starting in verse 10. So let's go ahead and start reading. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Okay, so 2 years after the flood have passed, and now we have, so if you go back to chapter 10 and you look at the genealogy there, I said that was all just kind of, the rough story, giving you all the genealogy in one chapter, and then we get on to some of the stories. So now this is going back again and describing some more of the genealogy that we already covered. However, I think that it's interesting to point out that if you go back to chapter 6, when it starts talking about the flood, God said that, the man will not dwell more than 120 years. But we can already see that right after the flood, people are still living well beyond 120 years. So this points to me, although people begin to start living less years on the earth, even now, your best bet is going to be between 80 and 100 years old, 110, and then people die off. But we can still see here that they're living well into their, 200s, 300s, 400s. And so God could not have been possibly talking about man's going to only live 120 years. This had to have another meaning behind it, which leads me to believe that it is talking about the Jubilee years. So every 50 times 120 would be 6,000. But let's go ahead and continue reading. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 530 years and begat Salah. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Salah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Salah lived 30 years, and begat Eber. And Salah lived after he begat Eber 403 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years, and begat Peleg. And Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years, and begat Reu. And Peleg lived after he begat Reu 209 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Reu lived 230 years, so 32 years, and begat Serug. And Reu lived after he begat Serug 207 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years, and begat Nahor. And Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 20 years, so 29 years, and begat Terah. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years, and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. So before we get into verse 27, I want to point out here again the specificity, if that's a word, that God is giving us here, the Holy Spirit inspiring this word. He doesn't just say, oh yeah, somewhere, in his early 30s. No, he gives you the specific year, 30 years, or what was it, 2 and 30 years, so 32 years. It really details this to show that God is in control. God's there with you every day of your life. He's walking with you. So I just think it's really important to point out the detail that God is giving here. All right, so verse 27, if I can stop stumbling through my words, we can move on. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begat Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren. She had no child. Okay, so right here is where we start getting into the story of Abraham and Lot. We can see through this that Lot is Abram's nephew. And so we'll continue here with verse 31. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees, however you pronounce it, to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. All right, chapter 12, Abram's call. Now, this is important to pay attention to the details that God is giving Abram here, okay? So let's look at this. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. So, Abram, I want you to leave your land, leave all your family, leave everything you know, and go to this place that I'm about to tell you. Okay, so that's very important to pay attention to when we move forward. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. And this shows all throughout history. I mean, you can just look at the history of Israel, and anybody that blesses Israel is blessed. Anybody that curses Israel is cursed. And it continues to happen all the way till today. Now, this specifically is about 4,000 years ago. We know that Adam to Abraham was 2,000 years. Abraham to Jesus is another 2,000 years, or Yeshua. And then 2,000 years from Yeshua to today, 2028 from the death, or 2028 marks 2,000 years from the death. So we can see that there's a line here of 6,000 years. This currently that we're speaking of is 4,000 years ago. So verse number 4. Now this is when we start having to look back at verse 1 and seeing the contradictions here already. Not contradictions in the Bible, but rebellion of man, the contradiction of what Abraham does in comparison to what God tells him to do. So Abram departed. Okay, so now we're on the right track. As the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. See, he told him to get away from his family. And all of a sudden, now his nephew's going with him. Already going to start having some problems. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. Okay, so we're already into an issue. God tells them to leave your family, leave your household, leave everything there, and go. And Abram says, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to leave everybody. I'm going to take my nephew with me. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take my possessions, and we're going to go. He's still going. He's still listening somewhat, but he's not listening to every detail. Did God tell you that you can't eat it? Well, God said we can't eat it and we can't touch it. God didn't say that. You're adding to it. And it just continues and continues and continues to do. When we do that today, if you don't live on the Word, and you say, well, did Jesus really make all foods clean? And then you have all these different pastors say, well, yes, it says it right here in this verse. Well, continue reading and get the whole context, and actually, no, it doesn't say that at all. So it's very important to pay attention to exactly what God says. Because if you do what God says, your life will be fine. If you don't do what God says, that's when you start compromising, and that's when Satan really starts coming in and, okay, well, he's compromising here. What else can I get him to compromise on? Or her. Don't want to offend anybody. All right. So now we get on to verse 6. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Sychem, unto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. And the Lord appeared unto Abram, and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west, and Hai on the east. And there he builded an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. So you can see all these different things if you have a Bible maps. You can look at that and kind of see where Abram traveled. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there. For the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, see, King James, sorry, I get a little tongue twisted sometimes, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, Thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. Okay, so now he's telling his wife to, we're going to go into this land, you're a beautiful woman, and so for them to come and take you for their wife, for their pleasure, if you tell them that you're my wife, they're going to kill me. So instead of doing that, just say you're my sister. Just go ahead and tell a little white lie. It'll be okay. And that way they won't kill me. But let's continue. Okay. And so verse 14. And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was very fair. And the princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen, and he asses, and men servants, and maid servants, and she asses, and camels. So, because he's now saying that he's her brother, he's being treated good. Where if he said that he was the husband, then he'd be killed. So, let's pay attention here what's going on and actually looking at this story. So they're coming in and they see him and, well, this is your brother. Of course we'll take good care of you too. We're not going to treat you badly. You're this woman's brother. So, okay, we'll treat you well too. And he entered, and the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So they're treating Abram's wife, Sarai, very good. And so now God is giving a plague to Pharaoh here. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, She is my sister, so I might have taken her to me to wife? Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away and his wife and all that he had. So Pharaoh knew that these plagues were from God. I mean, it was just a pure indication. As soon as these plagues started happening, Pharaoh knew. And so Pharaoh called him to him, and he says, Look, why did you lie to me? Why did you tell me this was your sister? Because now you told me this thing. I treated her as your sister, and I was going, but before I took her as my wife, I found out these things. So now, I want you to get away from me. I want you to take your stuff, take your wife, and leave. He doesn't kill him like he thought he was going to. And if he would have just trusted God, things would have been fine. But no, he had to twist things. He had to add things. He had to take away things. He had to change the way the situation was, saying that she was his sister. All right. Shall we move on to chapter 13? And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, and silver, and in gold. And he went on his journeys from the south, even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. You ever have those moments where you move into something and you think it's going to be great, but maybe you weren't walking with God at that time, and somehow, sometime later, you end up right back where you were? You know, I look at my life and it's like, you know, man, I was doing so well, and then, golly, I ended up right back here in the same position I was in. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've done that. To me, personally, it brings up the idea of some of the relationships I've been in. You know, I made a bad decision. I got into a relationship with a woman, and, you know, of course, this was before my walk with the Lord. And, you know, it turned out bad, ended up in a divorce. And years later, made another stupid decision, got with another woman, you know, lust of the flesh type of thing. And here I am again, and here I am again, and here I am again, right back to square one. And sometimes I really think that God is leading me to this place so that way I can start over. You know, when I started walking or observing the Torah, you know, it wasn't until after I became single again. You know, I was in a committed relationship. We were actually engaged. And all of a sudden, things started coming clear to me that relationship wasn't good for my future or the future of my kids. And so I let that relationship go. And so now I'm here in this house. I've got my 2 daughters, and I'm single. And because of those situations being brought right back to where I was, you know, I was finally able to go back to my altar, get on my knees and say, all right, Lord, I'm done with all this. You know, if you lead somebody to me, fine. If not, fine. But being single, having my 14-year-old daughter here, she spends a lot of time, you know, in her bedroom on her phone doing the teenager things. I have a lot of time to sit down in front of my word and really study it. And that is what led me in 2019 to start observing the Torah. I don't believe that the Torah is what saves me. I believe that because I'm saved, I should keep the Torah. And there's a huge difference, because as soon as I start bringing up the Torah, people want to start bashing me and saying, oh, well, you know, no, it's not your works that get you into heaven. I never once said that it was. You know, I just had a dinner while I was on a trip for the holidays. This is my last Christmas, so I was trying to do all the fun things with my kids, and went on a trip to go see some family for Christmas. And sitting down at dinner, these topics come up. And of course, you know, people say that I want to argue with them. I don't want to argue with you. I just want you to speak the truth. And if you say something that is not the truth, expect that I'm going to call you out on it. And I'm not doing it to be mean to you. I don't care to be mean to you. You believe what you want to believe. Just don't try to twist things and tell me that I'm wrong or that I'm believing wrong when you're not even quoting the right thing. Go back, read it, and not to toot my own horn, but they went back and they looked it up and they said, oh, okay, so that word wasn't there. That's all I was pointing out. You know, yes, you are to pray and believe that what you're going to pray about is going to happen. But this person in particular used the word and claim it. Sorry. You can't reach out and just say and claim it. That's what the Joel Osteens or Osteens of the world want to say. You know, claim it, claim it, claim it. No, don't claim it. That's prosperity gospel. Get away from that. Stick to the word. Don't add to it. Don't take away from it. Those are the dangers of it. So I was not doing that out of anger or trying to prove this person wrong. I just wanted to point out that you need to stick to what the word says. If it doesn't say the word claim it, don't use the word claim it. Okay. But let's move on. Okay. Where were we? See, I always lose my spot when I go on my little rants. Okay, so verse 5, chapter 13. And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite and the termites, that's not in there, dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we are brethren. So now we've got all these people, you've got Abram and his nephew, and their families, and all the people that are with them. They've got all this cattle, and they've got all this property, and they're trying to live on a little 1 acre lot, or whatever. It doesn't say that. It's too much. You can't have all this on one property. So the people start fighting amongst themselves. So Abram is trying to do the mature thing, and he says, all right, we can't have this. We're family. So this is where we're going to get into the rest of the story. Let's not be angry at each other. Let's not fight. We're family. Let's come to a reasonable conclusion here. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. So Abram's being very mature about this. He says, look, you're my nephew. I love you. All this land is out here. Instead of fighting about this one little place, I'll be the better person. If you want the left side, I'll go to the right. If you want the right side, then I'll go to the left. Doesn't matter to me. We're family. Let's just live. Let's be happy together. Let's live together and do this thing. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, and it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. So, Lot looks out, and he sees this great plain, this great area. It's well watered. He can see that he's going to be able to grow things correctly. He's going to be able to feed his family and his cattle correctly. So he chooses the better place. So Abram is sitting here giving him the options. You want to go this way? Do it. I'll go the other way. If you want to go that way, do it. I'll go the other way. Lot looks out and he sees the greener field. That whole expression, of it's not always greener on the other side. He sees this area. And he says, okay, that's going to be perfect for me. I don't care what happens with Abram. I'm going to take this land. That pride, And so he goes over there. Well, little does he know that although it looks greener on the other side, Abraham knows how to fertilize and water his own stuff. So that's when we're going to start getting into the problems of Sodom and Gomorrah. And just, again, the whole going into Revelation, come out of her, my people, come out of Babylon, come out of the cities. Those are going to be destroyed. And so while Abram is trying to stay out of the cities and do his own thing in his own land, Lot is still more of that, I like the city life, so let's go back to the city. And he sees that area and he starts heading down that path. Okay, so for this video, I think we're going to go ahead and stop there. It's been about 20 some minutes now. I don't want to get into the next portion, because I just don't want to get into the next portion with such a little time left. I try to keep these Bible studies about 30 minutes or less, just for quick little studies. Hopefully that's easier for you to keep up with me. I know some of my other topical videos have gone, an hour, 2 hours almost. And I don't want to do these Bible studies that way. I want to keep these about 30 minutes and go from there. If you like these videos, give a thumbs up, share them, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And I hope these teachings or these studies bless you. I hope you were able to keep along. Again, I read from the King James, and we just covered up till, so we finished chapter 11, all of 12, and we are at chapter 13 going into verse 14. Shalom, y'all.